My name is Sarah Johnson. I'm a sophomore, undergraduate sophomore, and I am from upstate New York. So I identify as African American. Like I said, I grew up in a small, rural, and predominantly white community in upstate New York. And because of this, I was always aware of the fact that I was different in that aspect. It was always something that was in the back of my mind throughout my years in elementary, middle, and high school. And the only other people of color that I interacted with on a daily basis were my family. And reflecting back on it now, I felt that an aspect of who I was being suppressed in a way, even though I was still able to find a strong support system through like my friends and peers. I felt uncomfortable whenever race was brought up in my class or in school in general. And I was reluctant to talk about that aspect of my identity with my peers. It was just an aspect that I avoided talking about completely and altogether. And one of the reasons I decided to come to Soka actually was that I wanted a place where I didn't have to be the only person of color in my classes. And seeing other students here on campus in class freely talking about their racial identities has allowed me to be much more open and comfortable talking about my own. And for me, racial diversity allowed me to realize that it's not only okay to talk about race, but it actually should be encouraged. For me, resistance is more passive than the typical understanding of the word, and is a form of resistance I am most comfortable with displaying. In my life, this manifests itself by continuing to occupy spaces that have historically been unavailable to my ancestors. Or in other words, taking advantage of the privileges that I now have that wouldn't have been available to me 100 or 200 years ago. And this mostly relates to my education. One of the reasons why I decided to further my education was because of a conversation I had with my great uncle that still stays with me to this day. The brief gist of it was that he was expressing how proud he was that my siblings and I are taking advantage of the opportunity to attend college, knowing that he didn't have this opportunity for himself. And it's important to me to take full advantage of the systems that I, a couple generations after him, now have complete access to. And that's what resistance means to me, living in such a way that my ancestors would be proud of and taking advantage of the opportunities that they fought long and hard for. And it's continuing to show up for them in spaces that historically rejected them. And even though these more passive forms of resistance are the forms that I'm most comfortable with openly displaying, outward forms of resistance still heavily inspire me. I am often left in awe at the bravery and determination of people who strive daily to enact positive change in society. This year, I made an effort to learn more about my heritage through topics that interest me the most. I wanted to learn more about African American spirituality and African American folk healing practices, and both spirituality and traditional medicine are topics that interest me, and I wanted to connect to these interests to my racial identity in hopes that I could better connect with my culture and heritage. I think it's meaningful to find ways to connect with your heritage through outlets that are significant to who you are. It's important to find something you care about and learn about it through the context of your own culture. And regarding the second question, I think others can engage with Black heritage and history throughout the year by engaging with the creative forms of expression that Black people have put out in the world, whether that be through poetry, music, novels, and even film. I think just supporting Black creators in that way is really important. So there's definitely three things. The first is the ever-present sense of community that I feel whenever I interact with anybody that identifies as being part of the Black community. There's this level of innate connection and understanding that I feel that's kind of hard to explain to others. But another aspect that brings me a lot of joy is the Black culture in the community, and that manifests itself in music and food. My mom and dad raised me up on Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, and Black gospel on the weekends, and I still to this day listen to a lot of the music that I grew up on. But I think the thing that brings me the most joy, like I said, is soul food. Whenever I eat candied yams, collard greens, mac and cheese, my heart and my stomach feel so full and happy. I'm definitely biased, but it's definitely my favorite cuisine. It was my father for sure. Before his passing, as kids, he would always stress the importance of knowing Black history. He would sit and talk with us for hours about our history and ask us to read books about civil rights activists or influential figures in the Black community. And as a child, I didn't always understand where he was coming from or the significance of the things that he was saying. But now looking back, I realized that my father was very influential in developing my racial identity. He helps me understand the struggles that the Black community has faced throughout history and how important it is to build relationships who can relate to said history. And even now, years after his passing, I try hard to engage with and learn about my heritage in hopes of feeling more connected to him. I think I'd want him to know that I try every day to find ways to connect with him. I try to find and see him in different aspects of my life. I attend school and work hard in my classes in hopes of making him proud and my ancestors. And I think I want him to know that I'm trying my best and I'm trying to live in a way that would make him happy and proud.